Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. We continue to thank them for their great support of Volquest.com. For a free estimate, for whether it's roofing, siding, decking, fencing, shutters, whatever you need, gutters, they can take care of you at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure and give them a call, 865-524-5888. Or check them out online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. I am a proud and very satisfied customer of Exterior Home Solutions, and you will be too. So be sure and check them out, Exterior Home Solutions. He's Grant Ramey in the upper right box if you're watching on YouTube as we play Hollywood Squares. We've got Austin Price down below, and we don't have a center square today, but in the lower right is Rob Lewis. So glad to have all you guys with us today. Plenty of mailbag questions to get to. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and take advantage of our special promo that we've got going just for our YouTube viewers. You can get Volquest 2 months for $1. That's a special promo you have at UT1 is the code. Be sure and check it out at our YouTube channel. And we are grateful for all of your support and hope that those of you who just listened will become subscribers to Volquest.com and not miss out on the very latest in all Tennessee news and all sports with all things going on. All right, guys, let's dive right into the questions here. I will screw up a bunch of usernames and make Austin Price chuckle all morning long, so let's sit back and enjoy what happens here with Ubervol. He's up first. Zakai Ziegler has another year of eligibility left after this upcoming season, correct? Do you think that he takes it? Rob Lewis, Grant Ramey.
Am I wrong? It's over, right?
He can't take.
It's over, right?
Yeah. He can't take something. He can't take something he doesn't have. He's got one more year. This is it.
He wasn't here for the COVID year.
Everybody rejoiced. The COVID. What was it? Is it if you had to be a freshman in 2020, the fall 2020?
Yes. So like
in any sport, and not basketball, any sport.
Yeah, correct. Technically, like it's not over. You can still see like Bryson Eason could play this fall and then come back for a COVID year if he chose to, right? Like there are still a few eligible guys, but yes, it's dwindling fast.
And Zakai is not one of those guys. Correct. I mean, Zakai does not fall in that window.
And every coach is sort of glad to figure out what now. You'd like to have a few guys back here and there, but now you're back on a regular schedule. Which
but at least now everybody knows.
Everybody knows. There's no random. Wait, do we have something or we don't have something? All right. Lfvol has two questions here. Given graduation and expected transfer outs post 2024 season, does the recent thinking that we're only taking 3 wide receivers reflect our low probability with the elites beyond Smith, namely Cunningham, French, and Meadows? And his second question is, while Brent's podcast hypothetically a tiered employee scenario might simplify the university side, doesn't it ignore outside NIL opportunities which legally cannot be restricted? Let's go to question 1 first, AP. Let's talk about wide receiver recruiting. Why 3? What does that mean?
I don't think it means anything. I think it just means they feel like, they have a room that's got, quite a bit of bodies in it. And, I don't feel like they have to. The number's always been 3 with the possibility of 4. And so you always just kind of go high knowing you can come back down, right? And so, like, the number's always kind of been 3, but if they hit on the right quadrant, or quartet, they would take potentially 4. And I still think that's the case. Like if Travis Smith wanted in and Jamie French wanted in, Tennessee's making room. But the point is they're taking at least 3. The number is 3, and if they were to hit on one of these other big timers, then it grows to 4. So that's kind of where that's kind of where it's at. It's like the offensive lineman. Let's say they're going to take 2 tackles, David Sanders, Jalen Matthews, and then let's say Juan Gaston calls and says, "Man, I really want to come to Tennessee."
Take them all.
You're going to take them all. The number is always fluid. Recruiting's always fluid. Like it blows my mind to people that struggle with like that. It's not black and white. Recruiting is the eternal shade of gray, and so like that's kind of where it's at. Again, the number right now is 3. If they hit on the right kind of combination, they would definitely take it.
Yeah, I mean, we hear this a lot, Grant, in the NFL draft later in the rounds of the draft. And people are like, well, what are their needs? Well, they're going to take best available. In recruiting, there's always a best available element, whether it's at the start of the assembly of your class or whether it's at the conclusion of your class. Like, is the guy too good to pass up? And that those are just realities of recruiting that have always been there, and they will always be there. Particularly when you look at the transfer portal now, you could say, hey, maybe I take an extra at this position, and then I can go backfill the other quote position of need with somebody out of the portal. So you're almost always taking best available, which is why the numbers are more fluid than ever.
Always take the best available. Always have the dream scenario. Always make room. And AP, just yes or no answers, black and white. There's no gray. There's no fluid. Is Tennessee the leader? Is Tennessee not the leader? All that stuff.
Yeah, I was going to tell AP. I think there's a 37% chance there's a receiver that could be in this class that we don't even know about right now.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe 32%, maybe 32% AP.
29.
Okay, you're right. I concede.
0.3.
To Lfvol's second question about NIL. Now, NIL is never going to go away. Okay. There's some people in administration. I just hypothetically threw that out for conversation piece. And probably wasn't clear enough and everybody with that. There's no talk of doing any kind of tier deal if they become employees or that type of thing. There are people in administrative role, there's some coaches in role that would very much like for it to be more uniformed in the recruiting world, and then it be more true NIL reward based on your play and based on the opportunity to make appearances, have sponsorship things, and true name, image, likeness, as opposed to, hey, here's your salary if you come play here, which is what NIL currently is, right, AP? I mean, it's if you come play here, yeah, you got to meet some obligations, but here's your salary, essentially, if you come play here. That's why you hear people talk about guardrails all the time. And the guardrails would start for some people if you could limit some of that stuff on the front end before they ever played it down. It makes your locker room easier to manage, right? It's more reward based, it's more true name, image, likeness, and branding as you establish yourself versus, giving a large sum of money for somebody to come be here because they're a highly rated player or they're a player of great need. But NIL is never going to go away. Anybody who says they're going to eliminate NIL is crazy, right? I mean, legally, who's going to go back and say, "Hey guys, you can't make money off your own name"? Is long. I mean, not only is it out of the tube, the tube doesn't even exist anymore. There's nothing to put back in with that. Now, can you put any parameters on it? I don't know. I think courts say no, right, AP? I mean, isn't that why Tennessee was in a federal courthouse in Johnson City?
Greenville hubs.
Greenville, excuse me.
You were there.
I know. I apologize. I apologize to the fine folks of Greenville. It was a great stay on a cold morning, and I do appreciate the guy who hung the flag across the street. So
I don't know who's more insulted right now: Greenville people being called Johnson City, or Johnson City people being called Greenville.
I know. I apologize.
I mean, he sat in the booth at Pal's there. The only Pal's you can go in and sit down at.
I know.
Nice. It's a pleasure.
I've sat in that booth multiple times. That was the most rewarding experience of sitting in the booth, because in the other time I went up there and watched my son's football team get their brains beat in by the Greenville Green Devils. So, yeah, that's a nice Pals in Greenville. I apologize to all the good people.
It's number two Pals in the rankings, only behind the original Pals.
You like the outside Pals where they gave you a French fry on the fourth day of your life or third day of your life on the way home.
I love the original Pals. You sit on the picnic table and you feed the little birds that are always right there.
Here's a not to get off the tracks here, but here's a really good.
We're long past those. I've derailed this bad boy.
Original Pals story, and this goes back to the first days of NIL. And John Fulkerson signed something with Pals, and this is, really early in the NIL stage. And they have a thing in the parking lot where they're going to shake his hand, they're going to hand him a shirt, and he's going to hand them a basketball, and it's all set up for this great moment of PR. And I swear, as soon as he shakes hands and as soon as everybody's taking the pictures and hitting record, here comes this homeless guy pushing a bicycle right behind the photo shoot. And he's just in the middle of everybody's ceremonial pictures for eternity. He's there.
I can say that the Pals was an excellent meal on Wednesday evening. So I do appreciate the Big Orange Caravan stop, because that means there is Pals consumed on that trip up there. So
Yeah,
it was excellent.
Here's my pal story, and everyone here will appreciate this. Probably Grant less than the other two because he's been around me less than Robin and Brent, and maybe they've heard this. I know Brent maybe have heard this story. So one of the first dates me and my wife went on, we went out and we went and she went out and rode around. I played cattails at Meadowview, and we went, and we went to the original Pals for lunch.
You knew right then you were marrying her because on one of your opening dates, she got in a cart and watched you swing a golf club.
Yeah, and so people don't know.
Wait a minute, no. Before you get to the Pals, at what point in that round of 18 did you go, I better marry this person because it's not going to get any better than this for me because she's literally enjoying the fact that I'm hitting a white ball around the golf course today on a 4-hour date?
I mean, I don't know.
Be honest.
Answer carefully. Answer carefully here.
I don't know if there was an exact point. I can remember riding around in the car with her and like, I can see myself traveling with her, right? Like, you can like start envisioning these things.
All right, go to Pals.
Everybody on this podcast, a few people watching know that I'm an extremely picky eater. In fact, grew up eating a lot of chicken tenders and French fries, and that's what I ate, right? Like fries. I didn't eat hamburgers until about 2009. I didn't eat pizza until about the same time. I was a super picky eater. Still am in so many ways, but I've grown a lot, as Hubs would say. So I didn't eat hamburgers, and so like all I ate at Pals was French fries, and and so like we go to the Pals, and I'm telling a super stupid guilty story on myself, but that's okay, and I enjoy sharing my life. So I get fries, and she thinks there's some of hers, and so she goes and reaches from it, and I'm like, whoa. Lucky
Austin doesn't share food.
Luckily, I recovered from that. I am so lucky I recovered from that because it was incredibly dumb looking back at it. But still, like that's my pal story from the OP.
Yeah, this is the same Austin Price who the first lunch I ever had with him, he ordered 2 biggie fries from Wendy's in a drive-thru. So there's where the pickiness originally started from. All right, we got to get going here. More questions. CMD, Rob Lewis is totally disengaged. CMD has the following question. Not complaining a bit about our offensive production over the last 3 years, but why do you feel like Josh Heupel has been so screen averse? Seems like we hardly ever run them. With the way our linemen set up, our experience with draws and inside runs, the way teams rushes us, and our ability to force DBs into following receivers deep, seems like these style plays would frequently pop for big gains. Plus, they slow a pass rush down. We have had the personnel with the types of backs that we have. So why no true screen game with the running backs? Anybody?
I was getting ready to say he's got to be talking about running back screens, right? Or he was out of the country when Tennessee played Texas A&M last year. I guess that he mentions it. I don't know that they do a lot of true screen to the running backs, but man, the wide receiver screen is. I don't know if is that a true screen? What they do, guys? I mean, they get 2 guys in front of the receiver.
Some would argue it's an illegal screen every time they run.
Well, I can see that too.
Others would not. No, it's a screen. I mean, it's an extension of the run game. I think part of the reason why you don't see it, and you haven't seen it the last 2 or 3 years, maybe you could have done it more last year. I don't know all the blocking scheme stuff, but I think the quarterback's legs change that variable a little bit too, because in some ways, if you've got a quarterback with good legs, you welcome a speed pass rush. You like guys getting way upfield because it creates some issues for you that way, as opposed to freely inviting people, just turning them loose to run true screens. But I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know enough about their schematics up front with things. But he's right. I mean, we have not seen very many screen passes thrown.
I agree with the point he made about they've had some ideal running backs for screenplays, and I think never more so than Dylan Sampson. But I'm also of the mind of if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Like I'm not really one to question Heupel and how he scores points and how he produces offense, because that's all he's built his career on scoring points, making big play offense and explosive plays. So however you got to do it, go do it.
All right, Vol, I am here before we get an update from our friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Who is the most important recruit for the football staff to lock up here in the next 1 to 2 months, Austin Price? Black and white. Number one priority is no. I'm just kidding. Who are a couple of top priority guys? David Sanders obviously tops that list offensively. Maybe give a top priority defensive. We'll do one defense, one offense. How about that?
Defense. That's a great question because I think at linebacker again. I think they're still trying to find their footing. I think defensive line. Can you get Demarion Dye? Can you get Christian Garrett? Can you get one of those guys in the boat? I think the next 6 weeks or so will be pivotal for Tennessee. Again, I said this a year ago. You got to land your fair share. You're not going to land all these guys, even the guys you're in good position with. You're not going to land them all. Like it's just what it is. Like and everybody's got to quit falling into that same routine of, well, we lost them. You didn't really lose them. You never really had them. You just had the momentum. Like there's a difference there. And when kids aren't willing to get in the boat and things go down the road, it's kind of like, Cam Sparks. I would have told you in January, Cam Sparks is going to end up in Tennessee. Then Cam Sparks drug it out. I don't see him ending up here, right? So it goes both ways. And so offensively, David Sanders. I would also probably tell you Travis Smith, Derek Meadows, like any of those lanky receivers. Tennessee loves to get a tall receiver. Defensively, I would definitely go with Christian Garrett, Demarion Dye, just any of those defensive linemen. I think because Tennessee loses a lot of defensive linemen after this year, so they've got to try to replenish that. Plus, they'll have to go to the portal, in my opinion, for D linemen as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Shameless plug here, Matt Ray with priority big boards, top big boards, position by position. Those will be coming out here over the course of the next few days as Tennessee wraps up spring evaluation. So be a little bit more of a kind of guideline for you to follow with some names to watch. That it'll obviously be fluid. It changes. Names will go on. Names will come off. But we'll do that for you here over the next few days to help you get ready for the craziness that is the month of June. And decision time for everybody in recruiting, for most everybody in recruiting. All right, that gets us started here on the Mailbag Podcast. Plenty more of your questions coming up. But first, a message from our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions.
Severe weather can strike at any time in East Tennessee, and Mother Nature can do severe damage to the first and most important line of defense that you and your family have against Mother Nature, and that is your roof. Whenever she strikes, make sure that you call the people that I call. Make sure you trust the people that I trust, and that's my friends at Exterior Home Solutions, because they're more than friends, they're truly family.
Thanks again to our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure to give them a call, 865-524-5888, or check them out online at exteriorhomesolutions.com for all your roofing, siding, shutters, fencing, whatever needs you have, decking. They're going to take care of you at Exterior Home Solutions. Back to the questions we go. MarketSquareStreaker, what types of changes, accommodations in Lindsay Nelson Stadium will there be for regionals, super regionals? For example, will there be more seating, restrooms, also any talk of a block party outside the stadium during that time? Not going to add any more seating. Obviously, they're going to have, it's going to look like Augusta National, AP, on whatever day where they roll everybody in to tear up the golf course. What's that, Monday after the media gets through playing, where they just start mauling the golf course? That's going to be Lindsay Nelson Stadium the day super regionals are over. There'll be cranes and dozers ready to roll in to start the renovations. But in terms of temporary seating, there's not any place for that at this point.
I would say they'll do the block party.
Yeah, I started to say, Danny White loves a block party, Rob Lewis.
Well, is anybody played Augusta? Can we show hands? Not me. not anybody.
We're not doing a hole by hole blow on the podcast.
Anyone?
That's on that's on Austin Price's Super Secret Podcast Network, where he gives you a shot-by-shot blow of his day at Augusta, and attaches video with that. So be sure and check that out. You got to be a subscriber to the Austin Price Super Secret email to get that. But this is not one of those throw-up temporary seating type deals. I mean, they have permanent seating down both lines. We're not adding another level of we're not erecting another level of porches out there. It is what it is, and then it'll be about destroying the front of the stadium and getting caught up to date from a facility standpoint once the super regional is over. But you can bet there'll be a block party if they can get people in the street right there, which I'm assuming they can get that cleaned up enough from the construction they've done to use the road there. So I would think a block party is a definite likelihood. Andrew Akens wants to know, if Tennessee was a farm team for the NFL, what draft grade would you give guys that are likely to leave next year, and who are the guys that will eventually get there? Probably underclassmen or guys who will be 5-year guys next year. For example, Eason, Big O, James Pearce, Omar Norman Lott, Cooper Spraggs, Brew, Thornton, maybe Squirrel Sampson. Give a draft grade, Rob Lewis, on some guys on this team.
I mean, I don't know about some of them. I mean, a couple of them are easy. I mean, James Pearce is a first rounder. I mean, next year. I mean, I don't know about I think they got a lot of talented freshmen. I mean, guys who are sophomores right now. I mean, how much did we see them last year? Besides, we saw Nico one game. I'm ready to go all in, first rounder. Punch the hype on that one. But I mean, I think you got a lot of guys on the defense. I don't know what Omar Norman Lott's draft grade is, or Amari, or Bryson Eason. I mean, I think they got a lot of dudes in the interior. They're going to play in the NFL, whether they're third, fourth, fifth, sixth round draft picks. I mean, I think they got a lot of guys inside that are at least going to be on rosters coming down the road.
The overall grade is going to be good, because it's like my college career where you get in a group assignment and you just find the group that's got the smart person, because James Pearce is going to be, he's projected #1 overall by Pro Football Focus. I don't know who at Pro Football Focus James Pearce needs to be paying, but the publicity they give him is incredible. I mean, they're not alone. There's other outlets out there that have him as a top 5 pick in the draft. Like, that's when you have that kind of talent at the top, it's going to skew the overall grade, because Tennessee's not often in that conversation where you're talking about a #1 or a top 5 pick like James Pearce is going to be a year from now.
Yeah, I think when you look at guys who can move and around, I mean, I think a receiver can come out of nowhere, AP. I mean, I think that guy can be a 1-year. I don't think offensive linemen can be 1-year wonders. I think that the evaluation of that position is a little bit different in the National Football League. But I think receivers can come out of nowhere. And I think defense, because everybody needs a defensive lineman so bad every year, I think a defensive lineman can jump up big time. For example, I don't think Bryson Easton's going to show up on anybody's board, but he could be at the end of the year a really hot commodity, right? I mean, we saw the year Lane was here, Rob Lewis. I mean, Dan Williams was kind of an
nobody's radar.
I mean, if he were a portal kid, everybody would have been asking, is he leaving? Type deal. And he ends up being a late first round pick. I'm not saying Eason's going to be that, but I think that is the position, because there's such a need there that guys can just kind of pop up out of nowhere. The guy the Titans took, Sweat, he had a great year. I mean, he won the Outland Trophy, but he was not the year before. In the first couple of years at Texas, he was kind of thought to be just an overweight, nothing. And then he had a great third year, and he ends up being a guy who goes very early on day 2. So you can cut. My point, Austin, is that's a position where you can really move because of the need NFL teams have.
Well, and I'm not a hopeless NFL fan of a team like Grant is, so he may know a lot more about, but it just seems to me, defensive guys especially, there's more of an opportunity for a niche, to find a niche like this, depending on a certain type of defensive lineman in a 3-4 scheme or a 4-3 scheme, and it seems like there's just more of a chance. You can be a 2-down player at multiple positions on the defensive side of the ball, whereas you could be a 2-down player at a couple of positions, on the offensive side of the ball.
To quote Austin,
tight end, running back, maybe.
To quote Austin Price, you need quarterbacks, and you need guys who get after quarterbacks, and you need guys who protect quarterbacks. Is that right? Am I quoting that right?
This is correct. Our next question is from I Miss Malcolm Rawls.
I miss Malcolm Rawls.
By the way, those two almost didn't get to sign because of an ice storm in Memphis on signing day. Dan Williams slid his way to the Kinkos back when you had to fax your national letter of intent because the NCAA didn't think email and DocuSign was a thing. So they slid into the Kinkos. Saw Dan Williams at the spring game. He was there at the orange and white game. Nephew's going to be a prep player in Memphis, and we'll see what kind of talent. He's not a defensive lineman. We'll see what kind of talent he is. Dan's back in Memphis and doing fantastic. One of my favorites. I know, Rob, one of your favorites to cover. Just a great dude, man.
Built like a ballerina from the waist down, wasn't he, Hubbard?
He was indeed. Just a great guy to cover. Brent, speaking of being favorite sports teams, I do have this question before I get to the next mailbag question. So I'm inserting my own mailbag question here. You have a Jourdan hat on, which obviously you believe is the GOAT. I'm assuming.
Before you go on this question, I'm Eric Kane. Go ahead.
Yeah, I miss Eric Kane. All right, so you got a Jourdan hat. So he's the GOAT. I don't think that's because of his North Carolina days. That's because of his days with the Bulls.
Yes,
okay?
Correct.
You're a Chicago Bears fan, a painful Chicago Bears fan.
Is there any other kind?
I'm not really sure why. I mean, were you old enough to remember the '85 Bears and the Super Bowl shuffles? Is that why you fell in love with the Bears?
No, but my dad had my dad was a Walter Payton fan from that team, and he had a Bears hat. It was the Clark Griswold, said Chicago, and then the Bears script across it. Huh. And I saw that, and I thought that was the team. And Jourdan, I mean, I'm a kid of the 90s. Jourdan was on WGN. He walked on water. He still walks on water. That's it.
So Johnny Red Kerr on WGN.
How do you shattered me? I thought that was a picture of Kirby Puckett stretching out to catch a ball in center field.
So
oh my gosh.
Here's my follow-up question to you, Grant Ramey. Are you a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan?
I'm a neither fan.
Wait a minute, you're a Chicago guy.
I'm not a Chicago guy. I'm not a Chicago guy. I'm a Bears
basketball,
fan.
football,
Blackhawks fan. I don't really have an NBA team. I just got Michael Jordan. That's it.
Okay.
Also, for when Eric Kane listens back to this, explain what a Kinkos is for his demographic and for those like him.
That's where the girl Ross cheated on Rachel worked. That's how you explain that. That's how you explain it. He's watched Friends reruns.
That's going the wrong direction.
All those kids Kane's age watch Friends reruns on Netflix.
Let's take it even further. That's where Jack Sells sent some copies of some plays to Florida back years ago, right?
Kane's more of a Dawson's Creek guy, Rob. He's a big Pacey fan.
Oh, all right. Here we go. Onward to ADaug here. The ADaug, excuse me. I gotta get the D in there. Which SEC coaches do you think are on the hot seat this season? Which SEC coaches do you think are more likely to make a move after this season?
Pittman, Napier, Clark Lee. I think that's about it. Shane Beamer. If Shane Beamer doesn't have a very good year, then I could see the angst over there. Because, I mean, again, if you're winning, you can do all the, putting the hat on, jobbing your head, you're dancing and all that. If you're not, kind of that act wears thin. It's like when Butch had a little success, he can do all that stuff. Then he loses, and what happens? All that stuff wears thin.
Where's Brent Venables at Oklahoma, Grant Ramey? I mean, it's early, right?
It's still early.
It's year 3?
I think so. It's still early. It doesn't seem overly. Oklahoma is such a high standard to kind of live up to based on your predecessors.
Agreed.
That's going to be tough, but I think it's still early, and I think there's some of the more obvious names that AP mentioned that are a lot further down that line than maybe Venables.
I agree with Grant, but I think Oklahoma is also one of those places you get fired quick. I mean,
and it doesn't help that their first game as an SEC team is Tennessee.
Well, I was going to say
there's going to be a lot read into that one way or the other.
I was just going to move it into the SEC. I think maybe gives you a little less wiggle room. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. I'm just saying there are some schools in the country where I think you can get fired after your third year. I think Oklahoma's probably one.
Well, and I mean, Grant, you make a good point. I mean, one of the fans' favorite sons is riding into town to kick off their SEC careers against them, and Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel, I don't think is going to Oklahoma anytime. I know nobody read into that. But if you lose that game, there's going to be some people, look, could have had this guy, and look what he's doing over there, and Now we're in this league, and yada yada yada. So I don't know. What do you make of the Brian Kelly comments about we're not buying defensive linemen in the spring portal? That's always felt like a bit of an odd marriage down there.
Way odd.
I get what he was saying, but I don't think you ever come out in this day and age and say we're not paying, because that's the only headline people are going to take from it. Now, if you want to say, hey, we don't think the talent level in the portal merits the commands, that the amount of money people were asking for, that's a different phrase. But everybody's going to run with that, Grant, with one headline, and that is that Brian Kelly says they're not going to buy defensive linemen in the portal.
You better have nuance, and you better have as much context as possible. And you're exactly right. You better explain it as, we just didn't find somebody in the portal that we wanted, or we felt like was a good fit, or whatever, that fit the profile that we were looking for. I mean, you better not come out and just say we're not paying, because that's the headline.
It's exactly why, if you're a Tennessee fan, Josh Heupel's kind of give you no good quotes, kind of
word salad.
Yeah, I mean, it works well because he doesn't ever put himself in these weird spots. I mean, like, there's Lane, who kind of is like Teflon Don when it comes to, like, he can kind of do whatever on Twitter and all that stuff, and it doesn't affect him or alter him. And then you have people like Brian Kelly, who just, what comes out of their mouth isn't necessarily what's in their brain. And so, like, it gets twisted and everything else. And so you guys are right. Like, that's one you could kind of, I would say, circle a little bit. I mean, like, if he doesn't have a great year, I mean, like, where's the angst to get him out of there?
Well, I don't know that they're going to remove him. I just wonder, is he, because the second part of the question was, which SEC coaches do you think are most likely to make a move after the season? Everybody's watching Lane Kiffin, right? I mean,
yes.
If Florida were to come open, everybody's talking about, that deal. But is there somebody who looks at this and goes, you know what, this is not the best fit for me?
I mean, I think you're exactly right, Hubbard. I mean, this is, I'm complete outsider. Maybe I'm wrong or whatever. I mean, I think if Jim Harbaugh hadn't been suspended for a few, several of those games last year, and hadn't had the interim with Moore, I mean, I don't know this, again, outside looking in. I just wonder if Moore hadn't had some juice from winning those games where Harbaugh was suspended, if Kelly couldn't have, just gone all in and tried to get the Michigan job. I mean, because what a much better fit he would be for that program than where he is now. And again, outside looking in, I don't know anything, but I think when, with Harbaugh's suspension, that made it really easy for Michigan to, make, this, stay internal. Had it not been for that, I wonder if Kelly wouldn't have tried to move heaven and earth to get that job.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you as an interim, you lose a game you're not supposed to lose there, and all of a sudden you're not the favorite to get a job. Michigan's got a true job search, which they didn't have because of the success, obviously, that he had at that point. All right, let's go to Gbmfo. Everyone seems to rave over Boo Carter and expect him to have a big impact this year. Why doesn't the staff just start him from day one instead of Jourdan Thomas? You would think that would only help his development, Austin Price.
I don't know. I don't know how they think, why they make the decisions they do, one way or the other, good or bad. That's why they get paid the big bucks. I think more than anything, Jourdan Thomas has been there and is a good player. He's just going to have to prove he can stay healthy. I mean, if things go for Jourdan Thomas like they went the last few years, he'll end up missing time. And at that point, Boo Carter's go at the field, and I think it'll be harder to take him off once he gets on.
Part two of the question, let's see what Brent thinks that username means. Fill out the acronym.
Yeah, we just keep rolling on that one. And we'll go to Zvols. Over under 5.5 defenders with 6+ TFLs next year. In 2023, 4 reached that threshold. They were Pearce, Barron, Beasley, Norman Lott. Likely candidates in 24 are Pearce, West, Thomas, Norman Lott, Eason, Joseph, Pili, Carter, Telander, and Jourdan Thomas.
Over.
How much was it? 6.5?
5.5 defenders with 6+ TFLs.
Over. Last two shorts, I bet the under. Over. Give me the over. And he named half the defense. It persuaded me. He named half the defense.
I just think Keenan Pili's they can keep him healthy. I think Keenan Pili is the one that unlocks it for several guys.
I'm fascinated to see where Tyree West is, Rob. He showed up in the bowl game. He's got his real opportunity now. What does that look like in trying to replace the production of Tyler Barron out there? I mean, he's got a world of potential. Kind of where is he with that? I thought Joshua Josephs quietly had his best spring. We all know he can get after the quarterback a little bit. I don't know. You taking the over, Rob?
We've not even mentioned Caleb Herring. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to have 6 TFLs, but I mean that's just a guy that
they might have 24 against Chattanooga to open the season, right?
I mean, they have a lot of dudes, and they have a lot more dudes in the front seven than they've had in a while. I mean, James Pearce, is easy to fixate on, but they've got a lot. They've got a bunch of. They've got a bunch of guys in the defensive linemen. I don't know if they're going to have 6 defensive tackles. They've got a lot of dudes that are going to make plays up front. I don't know if you can. I would say over, but I wouldn't bet a lot of money on it. But they've got they have a lot of guys in the front seven that can make plays, a lot more than they've had in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Vol Star 88. It looks like Peyton Lewis is going to be a great running back for Tennessee. I think he could make a big impact as a freshman. Do we know when he'll be healthy enough to practice with the team when summer practice begins? Will he be ready by game 1, Austin Price?
I think he should be mostly ready to go in summer. As far as you're not doing any kind of real contact in summer, so everything else he should be good to go in that regard. And then after that, I think he'll be good to go for fall camp.
Yeah, I think the question is going to be where is he mentally for game 1, not about where is he physically heading into game 1.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's just about understanding. And,
right. And look, it's a great game to get him on the field in.
He can be behind or he can be way ahead. And if he mentally can handle it, way ahead, all of a sudden changes kind of where things are at the running back spot.
All right, Grant, I'm going to start with you on Pine's question here. All right. Scenario: Georgia goes undefeated. Ole Miss, Texas, and Tennessee are all 10-win teams. You might need notes for this, by the way. Would you rather play Georgia in the SEC championship game and the loser gets no bye and plays a road game in the playoffs, or would you rather get a bye by not playing in the championship game and have a home playoff game?
I'd rather not play.
Where's the SEC championship game in your mind? In terms,
I'd rather have a bye and a home playoff game. 100%. Like SEC championships are. It's a bonus for a coach, and it's a chance to get a ring. But if I can have a home playoff game versus not having to play Georgia and getting a bye, give me the bye and the home playoff game.
Well, it's getting ready to be just like the basketball tournament.
Yes, 1,000%.
Maybe not just like the basketball tournament. It's getting ready to be cheapened a lot with the 12-team playoff.
It's going to be John Calipari saying, "Y'all know which tournament matters."
Yeah, I am ready. I'm going to be fascinated to hear the first league coach who comes out and publicly criticizes, hey, we were rewarded by making this game, and now we're punished by having to play in this game. And Greg Sankey somewhere will cringe, and his blood pressure will rise very, very quickly when that happens. But it's coming. All right, go ahead.
This is 2 seconds. I mean, nobody benefited as much from conference championship games as the SEC exposure-wise. And in my opinion, nobody's going to benefit as much from the playoff expansion as the SEC. Maybe the Big Ten will. Maybe I'll be wrong, but they're going to benefit hugely. But that Saturday in Atlanta or Dallas in the future is going to be diminished.
Yeah, it is. All right, Athron's got 3 or 4 here. AP, here we go. We'll start with you. There's been so much talk about offensive tackle recruiting in this cycle. How many interior linemen is Tennessee looking to take in this class, both guards and center? We know it's fluid, but they just had an interior lineman in on an official visit, right?
Yeah, Anthony Ugamoro, and Tennessee, I think is in a pretty good spot there as we head into, his decision coming up on May 21st. Got a couple more visits to take, but again, I think Tennessee right now would be the perceived favorite in my mind for Anthony. But I think Tennessee would like to take multiple interior guys. Jacoby Ward. Glenn Ellerby is going to go, evaluate Nick Moore, who's a kid from Jeff County. it's picked up several Power 5 offers and kind of see where Tennessee goes with that one. He's doing that on Friday, I think. Tennessee would love to add, 2, if not 3 interior guys, and obviously 1 if they could play center, that would go a long way.
All right, have we nailed down who the main running back targets in the recruiting class in this recruiting cycle are?
Yeah, I mean, Shakai Mills-Knight to me makes the most sense. He's just down the road at Baylor. Now he's a Canadian kid, kind of like Josh Palmer was, but that one makes the most sense to go along with Justin Baker, who's already committed.
And for you basketball guys, 3 spots left in basketball. Let's assume Lanier takes one. That's a huge assumption. Does Rick leave the last 2 spots open? Take a high school kid that he finds late, like Tobe or Zakai, or do you think he tries to find 2 guys like that? I think first of all, let's start with the assumption of Chaz Lanier. I think that's a big assumption right now, Rob Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be here or not, but I mean, Grant. I mean, we said for the moment that happened, he had until May 29th, and
right.
I mean, nobody ever thought it was good. He was going to accelerate it. So I just think the longer that drag. I mean, and again, not saying he's not coming to Tennessee, but the longer that drags out, everybody that's got a hole in their roster at that spot with a collective at their disposal, Chaz Lanier is going to hear from him.
Well, let's face it. If Jonas tells Tobe, "Hey, I'm leaving," Tobe probably doesn't go in, right?
I don't think so.
But once he goes in, what happens? Piranhas, whoosh! All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I've got this offer and that offer and this offer and that offer. And as Rob was saying, the longer it drags on, the more desperate people get, which means the more money gets thrown at the kid. And then the kid has the decision to make. And Tennessee, or all the schools, have a decision to make. How far am I willing to go for said player?
I think the answer to the question in general is they're going to have 2 spots filled. They're probably going to leave 1 spot open going into the summer. And the perfect world scenario is they want to add Chaz Lanier and they want to add somebody else. And I think that would be probably a prep prospect, probably a guard would be my guess. I don't know who that would be at the moment. We'll see. And then you got to wait on Chaz and see what happens there, because they're all in on that, but you don't know until he makes a decision. And even if they don't get him, they're going to have to find somebody else to fill that spot, because you don't want to go in with multiple open spots into the summer.
I would just say they won't. I mean, great. We both said that they won't take somebody just to take somebody.
Right.
But I would. I don't think they'll start. I don't think they'll hit August with 3 open spots. If Armageddon happens and they don't get Chaz Lanier, I don't think they'll go to August with 10 scholarship players.
I agree.
All right, we have a couple more to get to here before we get out the door. Dale, 1972, one of the issues that causes a lot of portal activity that nobody talks about is the 85 scholarship limit. You're always going to have massive moments where you have an 85 scholarship limit. 85 players is essentially 4 deep on both sides of the ball. There's no way you're going to keep everybody happy with that many players on the roster. Just my opinion, but I believe college coaches could reduce the number of scholarships to 70. If you need practice players, you can backfill with walk-on. Will we ever see a day where scholarships are reduced? Numbers?
I don't know.
No coach is going to vote for it, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Let's take it down to a 53-man roster.
Yeah.
Get these kids playing.
I agree that you're not going to keep 85 kids happy, but you're not going to, keep any coach happy, being able to field a practice, roster with 70 kids.
Can you imagine if they did what it was like the NFL model? There's 53, and all of a sudden, Auburn cut said guy, and Tennessee's like, well, I really need a linebacker this week. All of a sudden, Tennessee picks up the guy from Auburn,
But feels
cuts him 2 weeks later.
We're almost there. We're just a few weeks on the calendar away from that. Just doesn't happen during the season.
It feels like you're heading that way in basketball if they let this mid-season transfer or mid-semester transfer thing go.
It'll make those November and December games a lot more competitive, because guys are going to be trying to get out of here.
You're trying to earn a paycheck.
I tell you what, a coach better be playing his youth too, and try to keep them engaged. Because if that guy's not earned it yet and doesn't get on the court, then somebody's going to tell him, "Hey, you got a bolt here." That is a crazy, crazy rule that is being talked about out there. All right, promise we're going to get these last couple in right quick, and then we're going to get out the door. I think with the talent wide receiver, I think Tennessee will incorporate certain packages in different situations. For example, I see them going big physical groupings in the red zone this year to create mismatches. Austin Price, do they do things differently at receiver because of the group? I mean, like his point is, you get to the red zone, you can go tight end, you can go Brew, you can go Thornton, and you can go Brazel, and be really big across the board in the red zone for jump balls or that kind of thing.
Coming out of timeouts and stoppages of play, absolutely, they can do some stuff like that. If they're in the flow of the offense and they're just going fast, they're not going to go, oh, hold on a minute, let's sub so we can get bigger. I don't see that at all. But if you're saying, hey, there's a timeout, we get a key third down here at the 6, all right, we're going to go with the big package receiver and go that route, sure. But if Hype's going to do nothing that interrupts the flow of the tempo, period.
Yeah, I agree with that. Particularly at that point on the field, because it's harder to make a defensive sub because they got to run longer. So if you can get up, get going, then it's very hard to sub inside the red zone. Although Tennessee not a very good red zone team last year in terms of finishing with touchdowns, that's an area that has to improve. All right, DeKalb County Vol wants to know, Tony V and Josh Heupel have both inherited rosters and teams that weren't ready to win championships when they arrived. They both flipped the script seemingly in a couple of seasons. They're polar opposites, or it seems that way. What's the difference and similarities they have to make them both successful in getting guys to win early in their tenure?
I mean, AP's probably around Tony more than I don't think they're polar opposites. I think they're kind of similar. Is that wrong?
I think they're both player coaches. I think they're both coaches that you look at like, I would want to play for this guy. I mean, Heupel's he's had so much success on offense that he's difficult to face and prepare for if you haven't faced him and prepared for him before. So he's going to come in and he's going to score points on people. And if you do that, you're going to attract talent. I think Tony, being as young as he is, being a player's coach, being fun to play for, he's an elite recruiter. He's an elite collector of talent. He's got elite coaches around him. He's had elite coaches around him. I don't think they're that. I think they're more similar than different, honestly.
That's what I would think. I mean,
I don't think Tony plays. Obviously, Tony doesn't play a crazy style of baseball or anything like that. But I think they're both player coaches and guys that it doesn't take much to get a guy to come here and play for either of those guys because you want to play for them.
I think they're just authentic. Like they are who they are. Like Josh Heupel is very comfortable in his own skin. Like who he is in front of the press conference is who he is behind his desk with the players and his parents is who he is at home. And I think Tony Vitello is the same way. Unlike Matt Ray, who is like, oh shucks, when he's on here, but then behind the scenes he's a cutthroat mob. But
Yeah, I mean, I think Tony is more brash publicly. Okay, it's very clear. I mean, he's not afraid to say things in the media. He's not as guarded when he talks to the media as Josh Heupel is.
He's
but
calculated.
I think that there's very much. I think, look, you can't win if the guys don't like playing for you, and if you're, and I think this goes for Rick Barnes too, right? I mean, I think you can throw that into the category. I mean, successful coaches are coaches who have guys who will lay it on the line for you all the time, and whether your personality in the media is whatever it is, those guys. I mean, guys will run through a wall for Rick Barnes. I mean, right? I mean, he can stairmaster you to death in practice, but those guys are going to be ready to go when it's game time because playing for this program means something to them. I think Tony Vitello's in the same situation and a bit of a different personality. And I think Josh Heupel's the same way. I think their personalities publicly are a little bit different, but what they do in the locker rooms with their team and to unify their team and the culture they have, there's quite a bit of similarity between all those guys.
I mean, I think
you're successful.
I mean, don't you? I mean, you guys have been around them all. I mean, just if you're just one-on-one, I don't think there's a lot of difference in the two behind the scenes. I think as an SEC head football coach, you're going to be more guarded. I mean, you have to be more guarded than if you're SEC head baseball.
You don't want to be Brian Kelly.
The platform is drastically different. Like in those two sports.
Yeah. All right. I promise, AP, last one because this one's fun. Volken wants to know, what are some of your guys' best stories of recruitments that didn't happen because the initial interaction between staff and player went really crazy? Any sport. I've mentioned this question because I have one. And if you just want me to take it and get out the door, then we'll go that
Hubbard,
direction.
Hubbard, this is not. I mean, this is in the Wayback Machine, and you probably tell the story better than I do. And it doesn't exactly fit the bill because it's not an initial recruitment. And Grant may not even been born yet. But Hubbard, do you remember when Kyle Wright and Chris Leak were like the top 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
In the country, and Tennessee had been recruiting Chris Leak forever from Charlotte, North Carolina. Kyle Wright was from California and came here on him and his family. Well, that was an unofficial visit, right? In the summer.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was.
And then like Chris Leak and his dad and his whole family, they showed up kind of like unannounced.
To mark their turf.
And then ended up not coming to Tennessee, like scared Kyle Wright into going to Miami. And again, that doesn't fit the bill as an initial recruit, but that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was one of the more bizarre ones for sure, because he came in for a visit and all of a sudden, hey, the Leaks came to watch practice today.
Yeah, I mean, just a huge deal. I mean, Kyle Wright came from Southern California to Knoxville.
Yeah, because he came in fall camp. It was an August deal. That's a good one. I hadn't thought about that one. The one that jumped out to me was former LSU linebacker and Dallas Cowboy linebacker Brady James in his sit down with Fulmer on his official visit. Basically looked across from him and said, I'm not playing for you because you're too arrogant.
Well,
and that recruitment was over at that point in time. He wouldn't play for Tennessee because he did not have a good feel about his conversations with Coach Fulmer on the official visit. That's one of the only times that I can safely say someone had a quote bad official visit. I don't think Tennessee did anything wrong. I think he came in with that attitude because he was never coming to Tennessee. But it was one of those that afterwards it was like, yeah, he's not going to have anything good to say about his visit because he was never coming to Tennessee. And he made it very clear to the Tennessee people that he wasn't coming to Tennessee. So that was the one that jumped out to me.
Rick and his staff will literally, and this was before the portal became what the portal has become, and it's changed recruiting a little bit, but they would put prospects with players and spend the weekend with the team and basically just take the feedback of the team and say, should we add this guy or not? Like they would be fully dependent on it. And there was one guy, I can't remember who it was, but this was the last 3 or 4 years probably, where the players said, this guy didn't really act like he wanted to be here. He was on his phone the entire time. He never really looked up. He wasn't part of whatever we were doing, and they just dropped him. That was it. No more questions asked. Like, he's not going to be fit here. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, it's there's always variables and always elements in recruiting out there that people behind the scenes, that you don't see stuff that happens behind the scenes. So fun question there. Appreciate him asking that one. That's going to do it for this edition of the Volquest.com podcast, presented by our good friends at Exterior Home Solutions. Be sure and check them out, 865-524-5888, so you can give them a call there, or check them out online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. Be sure like and subscribe this podcast on YouTube. Be sure and subscribe to Volquest.com, and we thank you for joining us. We'll be back with another edition of the Volquest podcast on Tuesday. That's going to do it for this week's podcast. For Rob Lewis, Grant Ramey, and Austin Price and Brent Hubbs, thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.